Drama. The drama is all centered around looping. When you don't manage your loops correctly, that impacts the customer and the partner experience. And that can tank your business and your team. Hi, dreamers. Welcome back to the Dreaming Forward podcast. I am excited about this month's topic, which is leader optimism. And in the last episode, we talked about the power of people in cultivating leader optimism. And today, we are going to talk about process. So, process is important because a lot of times as leaders, we think that optimism is something that happens to us. But I intentionally use the word cultivate because leader optimism is something that we work at and that we are intentional about creating and maintaining. When you think about an optimistic leader, that is a choice to see and name a situation in a particular way. And it's very difficult to assign and compartmentalize experiences without understanding processes. I'll give you an example from my own career. I talked at the top of this season about how the last, now heading toward 2 years, because if it's May. So let's say year and a half have been really difficult. And even though revenues were down, I was doing a lot of development, a lot of pivoting in the company, building relationships. And it would have been easy to assign that as failure if I did not understand the process that I was in to rebuild my company. I began to understand that it was easy to get revenue. I can come up with an idea like that. I could execute like that. I could find clients and customers like that. But what I really lacked was relationships to sustain and scale my business. And it wasn't because I wasn't personable or didn't believe in building relationships or cultivating connection. It was because I worked a full-time job. And even though my full-time job was related to the work that I do in my company, it had a whole other cast of characters and people and requirements. So a lot of what I have to do to build my company's relationships or relationships for my company, it happens at the exact same time of day that my 9 to 5 job happened. It couldn't happen at night when I had extra time. So most of what I had time to focus on was service delivery versus working on the business with building partnerships, business development. That small shift in mindset to understanding the power of process was key to me being optimistic about what my company could become. And then trusting that it would become that through the process that I have been following. So let's think about that for a second. The process that you're following will lead to success. If you don't believe that, I question the process. And I question your choice to follow the process. How can you be the architect of the team's future? What does that architecture look like? Process is a part of that. Now, about me, I talked about that one job in the last episode, but this time I'm going to talk about this other job. It was a contract where all I did was process mapping. So I'm a Lean Six Sigma black belt, and I love that whole methodology. I love the whole idea behind process improvement and continuous improvement. Love that. It's amazing. But the part that I didn't know I would love was process re-engineering. So what is a process? Y'all know I'm going to give y'all the definition. So process is defined as a systematic series of actions directed to some end. 2, it is a continuous action, operation, or series of changes taking place in a definite manner. And then it goes on to say some other things, but one of the other definitions that I thought was super fascinating was that process can be defined as course or lapse as of time. So when I read those definitions, I think of 3 ways we can appropriately manage processes to cultivate optimism. The first is sequencing. How do we manage sequence? 2, how do we manage looping? So that continuous action. And 3, how do we manage time? And specifically the passage of time. Let's start with sequencing. When you think about a sequence is an order of something. So it could be digits, it could be widgets, it could be cookies. There's a particular sequence in mind. How we sequence certain steps can help or hinder our journey to cultivating optimism. So if we do way more hiring before we do job design, it's going to be hard to be optimistic because you're going to have a whole bunch of people in there working that are doing what they think is right, but may not be leading to any positive end. If we lay off or fire people before we should, and before they're able to complete work, or before we're able to understand the organizational knowledge they possess, before we're able to see the scope of work we'll need, we're going to end up looking foolish. Because then we're going to be turning right around and hiring again in a couple months. And the question then becomes, why would they let people go only to hire folks? That's detrimental to our employer brand. And we're seeing a lot of companies experience that now. So how do we sequence the steps of our journey and that process in order to come to the best end? The other side to that is, how do we sequence it so that people can maintain motivation along the way? Motivation is so important to this conversation because some processes are just boring by nature. They're just not very interesting. And so the motivation can't be likability. I created a model around motivation, and there are 4 aspects to it: prestige, money, self-actualization, and safety. So pretty much that I've seen in my research, all of the motivating factors that we see, they could be grouped into one of those 4 categories. And so if people are motivated by safety and you are giving them reasons to be motivated by money, that misalignment is going to lead to wasted time, mismanaged work, mismanaged relationships, and a lack of effectiveness. Guaranteed. As you think about the sequencing, be mindful as a leader too of where people will naturally be lulled into complacency. And that leads to part 2 around continuous action. Because sometimes when things loop and people know it loops and they anticipate it, that's where you get the errors because people are not paying attention. They're so used to every Monday we send out this report at 10 a.m. Every Thursday at 2 p.m. we have to click this button to hit this batch process. So nobody is checking for errors. Nobody's checking for accuracy. Nobody is checking to make sure all the documents were attached. Nobody is checking for spelling errors. We just hit and send because every Thursday at 1:59 we hit send so it can be posted by 2 p.m. And so what does the marriage of sequence and looping, what does that produce as far as team optimism? Because we have to manage both of those. The other aspect to think about with looping is, when was the last time we pressure checked the loop? So I'll give an example of something that happened recently in my house. I pretty much never turned my HVAC system completely off, but I set the temperature in ways that I know it'll be maintained, so it's just not always running, or so I thought. I live in Metro Atlanta, so of course it gets hot. It's usually never cold. And so I have a certain temperature that I like. It's like a 2-degree range at all times, whether it's fall, winter, summer, spring. I just like this temperature. But I also have a house that faces east and west. And because of the floor plan, I get a ton of light at all times of the day, just because certain parts of the house are set up on one side, other parts are set up, on another side. So anyway, when I'm managing this HVAC system to make sure that I cut it down, I thought I was doing the right thing. But apparently I was wearing it down through this loop. And so I had to have someone come out to check my HVAC system. And they were shocked. Like, this looks new. I'm like, yeah, it's only been installed like 3 years because the whole house new. And they said, well, why is something wrong with this? And I was like, I don't know. That's why I called you. And they asked, well, how many times you turn it off? When you turn it off and on, does it do that? And I was like, what you mean off and on? Because I'm used to being in apartments. And when I thought about it, I was like, oh, you know what? The apartment complex naturally just would cut the heat off. I told y'all before, I was used to living in like pre-war style apartments, growing up in places like Detroit, Chicago, New York. And so I'm used to, they cut the heat on. They cut the air on, right? It's not something that I necessarily control. And I realized then, oh, the loop that I have my HVAC system on is doing more harm than good because it's wearing her out. And I never checked to see, one, is that even necessary? Two, is it putting too much pressure on the system? And yes, I called my system a she. That's my girl. But you have to check your loops. Some processes y'all been running for the last 10 years. Y'all been using this same form for 30 years and never checked. Is this all the information? I got to give an example about this because I actually need to call them on Monday about this. There is a state government that I'm now working with. And so I'm trying to set it up where I can have ACH payments. And so I submit the direct deposit form, but the way they have it in DocuSign, all the fields can be typed in except for one. And this is arguably the most important one. So I put the answer to that, since I couldn't type it in DocuSign, I just put it in another field and highlighted it in yellow so that they would know it's this other thing. I get an immediate bounce back message. No, we can't accept this. So I was like, okay. So then I said in the email, hey, this is not a fillable field. So here's what I did. No, we can't accept that. I said, okay. So then they sent it out again. So then I saw it was an option where you could manually upload something. So I'm like, oh, bet. I'm just going to upload the form. Let me download it. I'm going to write it in. So now I won't have no problems. No, we can't accept that. I get the bounce back message. So I was like, okay, again, this field that y'all know is super important, you cannot put nothing in it. Like, not it. So I tried submitting it again, this time with another workaround. Got the bounce back message again. No, we can't accept that. And at this point, I'm laughing now because I used to work in government. So I already know exactly who are the players in this. I know exactly the mindset. I know all of it. I could see this like a movie playing in my head. But y'all know it's frustrating the hell out of me. Because I'm telling y'all something is fundamentally wrong with this form. And I cannot have been the only person experiencing this. Please fix it. Please fix it. No, they're not listening. So now I need to call. And of course, they're in a different time zone than me because they all the way in another part of the country. So I have to navigate my schedule around them to call these people and figure out how I can get them this form and da-da-da. Drama. And the drama is all centered around looping. Somebody is so used to just quick scan. If you see anything empty in it, nope, you didn't do it. Not looking at, let me look at another part of the form. Is it there? Is this just default setting? When you don't manage your loops correctly, that impacts the customer and the partner experience. And that can tank your business and your team. When your customers, no matter how long-term, no matter how valuable from a revenue standpoint, when they feel frustrated by your processes, you can bet they're going to look for another competitor, regardless of if it is an important service or product or if it's something that is just something that they just do. You cannot afford to have people navigating processes without having an analytical mind. They cannot afford to go on autopilot with it. Because again, I'm a partner, I'm a vendor of this state, of the state government. I'm looking to do business with them. And it is one field on one form that is going to impact my entire payment schedule with this network of agencies that could potentially, if I had a different mindset, that could stop me from doing business with this state. The state. That's insane. It's not good. Think for a minute about your old favorite of something. It could be makeup, it could be food, it could be grooming products, whatever the case may be. If it was frustrating to pay them, would you keep going back to them? No, you'll find somebody else. I remember I had this issue with Sephora. I don't know if they fixed it now, but it used to be that if you were on the mobile site and you tried to use PayPal, for some reason it would just get wonky and it wouldn't open the page and you couldn't do it. So you had to go on the website. Well, y'all know what I did. I'm going to just go to Ulta because I'm not about to deal with that. Ulta is a competitor. 9 times out of 10, they got the same stuff. Or I could just go directly to the company's website and buy it from them. That is lost revenue. All because, again, somebody is hitting the loop. Nobody is doing the right CX testing, UX testing to see, okay, when somebody clicks this, what happens? You can't always wait and hope that someone will report things, because what if they don't? How often do you test your own processes from the customer and the partner view, which leads to the third one, which is time. How you manage time in a process is the make or break point. Some stuff you can't get done quickly, and some stuff you can't afford to do slow. Let's keep it real. If I wanted to so bad, no way I could graduate with a PhD in 6 months. I don't care how hard I work. It's just not about to happen. It's not going to happen. Likewise, it should not take me 2 months to create a proposal for someone who I'm trying to work with. Some things need to be like clockwork. So that means that you have to decide as the leader, do we need more templates of things, whether that's email templates, form templates, document templates, payment templates? Do we need more automation? Do we need more bodies in seats? Do we need more staff? Do we need better technology? What do we need to manage our time well? Do we need more analytical thinkers on the team who can be patient enough through a process? Do I need to manage my leaders' emotions so that they don't rush us through something that we need to take our time with? So I want you to think for a second about some of the products that come out and they rush to get it to market. You got to hurry up. And then they don't appropriately deal with all the cybersecurity protocols that they need to. And all of a sudden there's a hack and a breach. Boeing comes to mind with that. Hurry up, get it to market. We want to hurry up and sell it. And we the first to do this. Da, da, da. Yeah, people are in danger now though. And that's scary. What are you hurrying up to do that you need to take your time? And what are you lagging with that you need to hurry up and do? That's where leadership comes in. Because the people who can only see one part of a process, their part, they don't see all the pieces at once. And because they don't see all the pieces, they'll always have a distorted view of time. Mainly because whatever they're doing is the most important, because that's the only thing they're doing. But when you can see 7 things that 10 people are doing, you have a very different view of time. And if you as a leader can't manage time and timelines appropriately in the process, you'll never be able to be optimistic, because you'll always feel like you are too far behind or you are too slow. And you might not be right in either perspective. So let's think that one through. What does it mean for you as a leader to manage the time in a process well? What does it mean for you to manage your loops well? And finally, how do you manage sequencing as a leader to maintain optimism for your team? Remember, optimism is ensuring or having a proclivity toward seeing a favorable outcome. So what's your time orientation? What's your sequence orientation? Do you like to skip steps, or do you like to go methodical one by one? Do you loop things too fast before you check it? Or are you a micromanager and you can't even let the loop run before you get a chance to dig in and give your perspective? And finally, how do you manage time as a leader to ensure a favorable outcome? Some things are going to take 2 years, period. So how do you manage motivation, milestones? How do you manage emotions during that time? Tell me in the comments below. Again, sequencing, looping, and time. How do you leverage those 3 to create processes that will help you maintain optimism? Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye, Dreamers.